Well, looks like we are, those of us who are here are here. So welcome to the October 19th Board of Supervisors meeting. In accordance with AB 361, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors meetings are being held virtually. You can participate via the Zoom call and phone number, which is located on your screen and on the front of the agenda. So at this time, can we do roll call? Nikki or Tracy?
Sure. Supervisor Bohn?
Here in my office, just waiting to get back in the chambers.
Gosh. Supervisor Bass?
Here.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Present.
And Supervisor Madrone is absent today.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I know we have a flag to bring up, and we'll do the flag salute. And I believe there's one there. Okay. All right. So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It would be nice to get back in the chambers, especially for that piece. All right, so for those of you who may not have been at one of our meetings before, if you'd like to call in today and make a comment, please raise your hand by pressing *9. And when it's your turn to speak, you'll press *6 to unmute. When you're you'll have 3 minutes generally to speak, and when you hear this sound, oops, I messed it up. You'll hear a sound that tells you have 30 seconds left. Oh well, it didn't work. And we just want to keep everyone to the same amount of time just so that it's fair and consistent. So at this time, I'd like to go to our CAO Hayes, and are there any modifications to the agenda?
Thank you, Chair Bass. There are a couple modifications. Items D15 and D19 will be pulled from the consent calendar and will return at a later date. Item D11 is pulled for a brief discussion.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the suggested modifications?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay, come on, we've got to have a second for that.
Mike is frozen, if you guys noticed.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. No, my eyes aren't that good. All right, so we have a motion and then we have a second. I believe Mike ended up doing the second because Michelle did the motion.
Second.
Okay, good. So I will go to public comment and then we'll come back to the board on that.
Second.
Is that Mike talking? I can't hear whoever it is speaking.
That is Mike. And Mike, can you turn off your video and see if you come in better, maybe?
we send IT down to his office.
He's not.
Oh,
I don't think
Right, so, well, I'll go into public comment at this point, and we do have a few hands up, and this is for the consent calendar items. So if you are 7328, press *6 to unmute, and you'll have your 3 minutes. We can't hear you, Mike. Can somebody mute Mike at this point? I don't think this is working. Let's maybe Alicia can reach out to him. And I think we also lost our person that had their hand up. All right, well, we will go to the second hand up, which is 7454. And if you can press *6 to unmute to talk on the consent calendar.
Virginia, can you hear me with all your technical difficulties this morning?
I can hear you.
I think it was Wilson's belch that ruined the technical difficulties or caused them. Anyway, I do wish to make a comment on some of the consent items. You had D6 here, and it had to do with a budget transfer for child support services. when I look at the discussion, it says reduction in staffing needs and future planned development of staff to off-site location has greatly decreased the amount of square footage. So you're doing a modification of a facility, it sounds like. I hope that there's not staffing being cut down on child support services. I hope that that comment maybe just means it is going to be moved off-site, because that comment would lead me to believe we're doing something which I don't think is correct. On D7, we're continuing to act in the manner you are. I look up on the screen up there and I cannot see what any of you are doing still. I still feel that's a Brown Act violation. Everybody else has adapted to that, and yet the county seems to be continually dragging their feet. Let's see, we had some things pulled. I'm going to try and not hit those. COVID, my perception is that you basically did something that's going to be down having effect on the county 90 days hence, possibly. That was to go before the, it was to do with masking and testing versus people having the shot. And that was 90 days down the thing. And I think that was on your, you had a action taken for an action summary there where that was dealt with. But I just don't see that as far as being effective. I think by that time, a lot of this hopefully will be moot. And I think that was D8 where you had your thing where you had this special meeting, which went on and on and on forever. And I have a little angst with people being required and not made it as easy as possible, should they decide to not have that particular vaccine, which I strongly endorse, but I have a problem with the public sector requiring it of their employees. And we'll see how the union react to that, because that was contingent upon working with them. Items number 16 and 18. The public ought to know that we're receiving grants for, I think, $3,360,000. 2.9 of that is state funding, and another $400,000 for philanthropic funding into the North Coast region to support multi-year planning capacity building projects. So anyway, it would be nice in your staff reports, not your staff reports, but how these are agendized, that a benefit is being let know the public's getting that money. And unless you delve into the staff reports, you don't get those figures. So good for getting that money. Go after all that money that we can get. $3.360 million is not a small amount of money to have on consent without saying thank you. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on these consent items today.
Thank you. And we have 7328. Looks like you're back. Press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning, Supervisor Bass and Chair, and the rest of the supervisor, minus Steve Madrone. Hey, I wanted to give a shout out to Rex Bohn for going way out of town and participating in the chili feed for Senator McGuire. I got some good pictures. I wish I could share screen of Mr. Bohn gorging himself with pie. It was quite the scene and awesome. I just really appreciate that. Little disappointed we didn't see other supervisors down there, but it is what it is. At least some are making the effort to go down there. Anyway, I hope you have a great meeting. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in here, hoping to hear about the grain train a little today at some point, or the coal train, whatever it may be, and about the housing, and not the one in McKinleyville. I think what they're doing there should be spread out Humboldt County, because we need houses. We don't have the inventory, and the prices are skyrocket. And I know you all know this. It's a broken record over and over. But if we don't approve projects, we cannot get the prices down, and we'll never have the inventory. Seem like the rich are holding on to theirs, and it's a gimmick out there. So we need a bunch of new homes, subdivisions, need to work on housing for the homeless, even more than we have or that is coming. And appreciate your time to speak. So have a great day and enjoy the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. And I think I'm not sure if you touched on any of the consent items. I think you actually meant to go under general public comment, and I did not catch it at first. Tracy did, but thank you for calling in, and we'll consider that your general public comment. Alrighty, so then no other hands are up for the consent calendar. So we'll go back.
Point of clarification, Chair. It was a pie eating contest that I was pushed into participating in. I wasn't just sitting there gorging myself on pie. Fully understood.
I can see that. All right, Supervisor Bushnell.
Well, and I don't know, I didn't see the invitation, so I didn't even know about it. So just a point of clarification. But I wanted to recognize proclamation, our item number 4, proclamation, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I wanted to thank everybody that wore pink. It's awesome to see all the pink on here. If you guys want to turn on your cameras, it's amazing. Thank you for that support. And I just wanted to say that 1 in 8 women will experience breast cancer, and it's such an awesome thing that we all are wearing pink to honor breast cancer patients and awareness. So thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Hey, thank you, Supervisor Bushnell. I was surprised there's so many different shades of pink. I'm white. So. And Supervisor Bohn, you look great in pink.
And Michelle, yeah, thanks. And I got the sheriff's badge.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you for my sheriff's badge.
So I think it's great that they step up. But Michelle, I thank you. We do this every year, and I thank you for bringing it this year. I think it's a big deal because it is something that touches everybody, cancer alone, but especially breast cancer. But I also want to recognize it's a great time to really understand what our staff and the involvement. October 8th, 6 years ago, we had a fundraiser for Spa for a Cure brought together by Sue Sanchi to bring a 3D mammography machine. Was that right, Karen? 3D mammography machine into St. Joe's. And she headed up that with Dr. Mahoney. We closed down 3rd Street. And these are times I really like to thank Alicia and Karen and the involvement of the Cancer Crushers. This is a small group of people that have raised over $500,000. And they just step in when people are having an issue. We've had one in-house where people are having an issue. They have insurance, but travel costs, overnight stays, not everything's covered. And the Cancer Crushers just steps in, lock, stock, and barrel with everything and takes over, kind of like a group of locusts. They just come in, but they take care of everything. And they've been involved in well over $500,000. And that night, Sue was actually celebrating her chemo treatments coming to an end. And that was we closed down. It was a great night. But these type of things make me realize when you look back, you're going, wow, I've probably done 15 or 20 or more cancer fundraisers alone for families, groups. I get to pair up with Cancer Crushers all the time, which is why I'm familiar with them and know what a powerhouse they are. But so many different groups, our own American Cancer Society, so many people step up and do this. And I really appreciate Michelle for highlighting this, because I've been to baseball tournaments. I mean, I had a very inappropriate sweatshirt I could have wore today.
So did I.
From the baseball tournament.
Yep.
But a lot of people deal with it with humor, because sometimes that's the best way for them to put, and go forward, because but I think the 3D mammography machine that we got at St. Joe's was a big step, and that was a community-based effort. So I really appreciate that. And Supervisor Wilson, you're definitely in the pink now. So you got, well, I don't know if that's bad or not, but you're like 50 shades of pink. I don't know if that has anything to do with gray, but way to go, baby. Anyway, thank you to all that are involved that fight this battle. The survivors, I recognize what you've gone through, and those that have had family not survive, I sympathize, because it touches all our families in one way or another. So thanks again, you guys.
Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. Supervisor Wilson now has a very pink background. So
I do. There you go. You can see it now. Sorry, I was not where I usually am, and so my wardrobe selection is not so diverse. So, but I did have this saved up, but I kind of forgot about it in the technical difficulties. So there it is.
Great, thank you. Any other supervisor comments before we go to a vote?
I actually do. I do want to say I've been having had several survivors and some that didn't in our family as well. I want to say that this is pretty important stuff, and I appreciate Supervisor Bushnell bringing it forward.
Yes, I mean, I think we all have been touched. I know my mom had a two-time survivor, but she was really fortunate. And, the Cancer Crushers are awesome. I do see we have Supervisor Madrone on, so I wanted to give him an opportunity if he wanted to make a comment or not. I'm thinking not. All right. Well, then I think we can move to the vote. Nikki.
Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Bohn?
Did we have public comment on that since it was a pulled item?
It wasn't pulled. It was discussed under consent.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay. Supervisor Bohn?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, couldn't hear you. Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
And I don't know if Supervisor Madrone is on, but Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. So now we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items. And this is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. And so if you are interested, please press *9 to raise your hand. Of course, that means I have to find my participant button here. I'm having technical difficulties myself. All right, so we have two hands up, and our first number is 7454, and you have 3 minutes.
Sawatsky, yes, it was kind of not brought forward technically, but again, the cancer thing was a very important item, probably should have been pulled from consent. The time taken by you folks would be normally something that was pulled from consent. So in the future, pull those important things. The public has no problem with you doing that and discussing them at full length as you appear to have done on that topic. I'm going to go a little bit and help out people understand a little bit about the desire of many people to have transportation. My dog wants to speak on the train issue. Some years ago, when some people were trying to put in an east-west train, of course, which wouldn't have affected the Eel River Canyon whatsoever, and they were basically blocked by Supervisor Mike Wilson at the time from the Harbor District, and he had a private investigator out investigating David Hall, and put together a kind of a tentative 15,000, if I recall, feasibility study. And of course, when I started looking into this, the minimal cost for any kind of even start feasibility study initially was 150,000. So there's a whole bunch of numbers out there that are not reliable related to that particular study. And of course, that study is out of date. Things have changed. And as we're all aware, all of our ports are bottled up, and there's demand for shipping. And that's a demand that Humboldt County may decide to satisfy, which would be great. I reached out to some people over in the Redding area, the valley over there, and they still have a very strong desire to have their produce, everything up and down the valley, down through Colusa and all those things, to have a port where they can get their product over to Asia on a reasonable and rapid basis. So there is a demand out there. There was a demand then, and that demand hasn't changed. And it's a very diversified demand for potentially to support future development. Something that I hope all of you would not just rule out just entirely based upon a coal train scenario. But I think you should be willing to look at what I refer to as a grain train of food products. Or don't throw aside a project. There may be a better one. That may be a better one, but this is the one that was brought forward and the one that was able to happen. And again, can't see the Great Redwood Hobo Highway happening. So strongly support everybody, take all this negativity with a grain of salt and consider what actually could be the most economical, most friendly, least carbon imprint kind of manner of transporting goods and people. That's what the train is doing or heading to. And we don't want to have a boondoggle like the governors have had down south with that one that just isn't happening. But something should happen. Something should develop our port. And I think that's what Jeff there, from operating engineers, would like to see. We want the jobs. We want the ability to train people here and have them stay here with long-term jobs, not just strictly ecotourism. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Hey, thank you. All right, our next speaker is the last 41172. That's you. Press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
This is the non-agenda items, right?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Gabaton, and I just wanted to say thank you to Sheriff Parcel last week for the comments that he made, and that myself and my family are really grateful for the fact that we have a constitutional sheriff in our county. Probably one of the main reasons why my family and I all still live in Humboldt County and are continuing to plan our lives and do business here. And then I would also really like to thank Michelle Bushnell for the questions that she asked last week, because her constituents, those are the questions that her constituents have as well. And so I am incredibly, incredibly grateful that we have a Board of Supervisors that is asking the questions of the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So our next speaker is 5300. Press *6. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. This is Adam Lustig calling in from District 4. I also want to discuss some things about last week's meeting. I did notice that several callers were cut short on their comments. I was kind of sitting here running my own timer. I'm sure you're aware there's quite a bit of delay between the video feed and the audio feed that we get when we call in. So it takes a bit to get started. So I'd appreciate if you could start the timer once we start to speak, to make sure that we do get our full 3 minutes moving forward. And the other thing I'd like to discuss is, I found it disturbing some of the discriminatory and divisive rhetoric that I heard from some of the supervisors. A few of you pointed out that you were uncomfortable with some of the rhetoric of the callers talking about recalls and such things. But, the other side of that is, when you talk about, perhaps people shouldn't go to the hospital if they get sick and they're not vaccinated, or, maybe we shouldn't be hiring the type of people to be sheriffs that decided not to get vaccinated, or, these type of discriminatory things of people that just, they don't agree with your perspective on medicine and what your chosen path was to fight this virus. I mean, that's great. You wanted to get vaccinated, but 44% of the county as of the dashboard this morning isn't fully vaccinated. And you were elected to represent all of your constituents, not just the ones that agree with you. So I think both sides can tone down the rhetoric. And as leaders, I think, you should start that. So, I'll have more comments later about the COVID, but thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. All right, so our next speaker has the last 4 of 0116. And if that's you, press *6 to unmute.
Hello, I also had a kind of comment reference to last week's meeting. Hello, my name is Ash Peters with the Humboldt Freedom Coalition, HumboldtSD.com. One point Supervisor Bohn in last week's meeting mentioned was problems with disinformation and misinformation on social media. Some such alleged disinformation revolves around COVID vaccine ingredients, such as graphene oxide or SM-102. Also, that the list of ingredients is not included in the vaccine inserts. This information, topics such as these, they're in desperate need of official clarification. I request that Health Officer Hoffman be tasked with putting together a presentation to combat disinformation, going over all the ingredients in available COVID vaccines, and additionally that Health Officer Hoffman provide proof that all ingredients have been approved as safe for use in humans. I further request that if Health Officer Hoffman is unable to undertake this task, that a third party is brought in to create this presentation. Creating this presentation will act as a solid foundation of indisputable truth to combat misinformation, creating a path forward together, helping heal our divided community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So the next hand is 0326. Press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, this is Charles Wilson. I've noticed there's about a 2-minute delay between the video and the telephone. The video is essentially useless except keeping track of the items on the thing there. But what I know is, commenting on this east-west railroad, as far as I can see, Coos Bay has got a better harbor, better railroad connection. I don't really see putting all this money into something that's going to necessarily be duplicated by another fairly close by port. As far as misinformation and disinformation, I think Hoffman has indicated he isn't capable of handling that. I'm the guy that got almost pepper sprayed by the Department of Public Health people, and all I got out of him to get a clarification of what the National Institutes of Health definition of what a of the definition there, and he just added more disinformation and misinformation on it. Stevens gave me this idea that we've been studying this thing for 20 years, and that doesn't help any. I asked a definition of what was of what their definition was. I didn't ask about all these conspiracy theories or anything like that. I'm thrown in with that. What I see is that the media and the government is developing a culture of hate and fear for the unvaccinated people. I hear this thing about, the people, the rights, the benefits to society outweigh the rights of individuals. I hear that all the time. And as far as I'm concerned, let's guillotine everybody we don't want. The Taliban does their thing. My family's gotten these surrounded cities, and they annihilate them down in France. And in the years past, the English did that thing up in Scotland and all this kind of stuff. And it's to me, it's terrible that we're losing our society.
All right, thank you very much for calling. And our next caller is 8404. Press *6 to unmute. And for those of you who have experienced the time delay, it is about 30 seconds. So we ask you to turn off your volume on your video so you don't get confused and listen to the meeting on the phone. So that should help clarify, and you wouldn't have that. So 8404, press *6. All right, we are going to move on to, we'll come back to 8404, 0069. If you can press *6 to unmute. Welcome.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good. Thank you. Good morning. This is Melanie Johnson, Humboldt County resident. I have 3 comments this morning in reference to the October 12th, 2021 meeting. First, Supervisor Bohn stated he went to the CDC's website and found it supported getting vaccinated. callers like myself were referring to the CDC's vaccine adverse event reporting system, which documents adverse events from a vaccine. Supervisor Bohn stated, quote, "You can't just cherry pick the rights and the wrongs," unquote. Cherry picking would be stating that the COVID vaccine has been around since 2020, and the CDC's VAERS website has documented 5,947 deaths, while the MMR 1971 has 89 deaths, the DTaP 2005, 97 deaths, polio 1961, 71 deaths, etc. That would be cherry picking. As Ian Hoffman routinely quotes the CDC for guidance, your constituents are simply doing the same. Second, Supervisor Bohn stated, though, that he contracted COVID-19, he did not spread it to those around him because he was vaccinated, and that's how he knows the vaccine works. I contracted COVID from a fully vaccinated person, and I'm unvaccinated, and I did not spread it to the 5 unvaccinated people I had close contact with while symptomatic. So that's how I know what. Supervisor Bohn's statement is what we call confirmation bias. It has no science behind it, and it's dangerous in light of people's lives and livelihood, i.e., I lost my job because I wouldn't get a shot for something that I already had. And third, both Supervisor Bohn and Madrone expressed displeasure in their constituents threatening to recall them if they pass mandatory vaccines. I don't need to remind any of you that you're elected officials whose jobs ride on the premise you speak and represent those who elect you. If you fail to do so, the security of your job is threatened. Many of us in this county and country know all too well what it feels like to have your jobs threatened when you do not comply with those who hold power over your position. If Supervisor Bohn and Supervisor Madrone don't like having their jobs threatened by their constituents, now they both know how many of us feel whose jobs are being threatened and whose jobs have been lost because we won't comply with the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Thank you.
You're on mute. Still.
Sorry, I'm not used to the setup I've got in my office today. I have things all spread all over. All right, let's try 8404. I was trying to get 8404 more time. Press *6 to unmute. And it looks like you are unmuted.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is Francesca Hanson, and I am a longtime Humboldt County resident. I have 2 children that go to Trinidad Elementary, and I am exceptionally concerned about the mandates rolling out and how this is going to impact our community and especially our children. These vaccines are not safe. There is building evidence all across the world that this is the case. If you look at Israel, they are on their 4th booster. They are the most highly vaccinated population in the world, and they have the most breakout cases. This isn't some conspiracy theory. I'm really tired of hearing real facts being called conspiracy theories because they question a narrative that is being pushed by policymakers and our media to manipulate us to get vaccinations for reasons I'm not really even going to get into. It's so sinister. So I would really like our local government to consider that we, the people, do not want these vaccinations to be considered. I had COVID. I have antibodies. I recovered naturally. I supported my immune system. I'm healthy. I don't need a vaccination. My children don't need vaccinations. People, if they want to get vaccinations and they want to be part of that experiment, go for it. But I don't need to have that. It's not even proven by science that it makes sense for everybody to be vaccinated. Natural immunity is the most beneficial way for us to deal with a situation. Our bodies are miraculous machines created to deal with this kind of situation. We've been going through existence as human beings with our bodies being designed to deal with disease. This is no different. The difference is that Wuhan created it. This was a lab-created virus. That's not conspiracy theory either. That's just plain fact. if you look at the funding, follow the dollars, it's pretty easy to put the pieces together. I'm really confused why people aren't doing that, why critical thinking has become something that's like a marginalized way for us to behave. I really encourage people that are in government to start actually expanding their vision. All of you, Board of Supervisors, representatives, like, you guys need to start looking at other information. The information that you're being spoon-fed is not correct. The numbers in the county of our COVID cases in hospitals are really small. People that are actually dying, these populations are the elderly, are the immunocompromised. It's not healthy people. It's not the children. This is completely absurd. So I really hope that people start actually looking at real science, following scientific process, and not just.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for calling in. And that is the last of our speakers. So we'll go back to the board. And I'd say for future reference, we did have COVID-19 update on our consent calendar. Most of these comments were actually regarding last week's meeting, but I think a lot of these would have been more appropriate under consent calendar. So I'll try to remind people next time that if that is what they plan to comment on, to do it under that portion. So we will now move on to our pulled item, and I believe that is D11. And CAO Hayes, I see Naftali on the screen.
Thank you, Chair Bass. Yes, item D11 is pulled from the consent calendar to set the public hearing on redistricting in Humboldt County for the date of November 2nd, 2021. This does need to be a time set item, so we merely need to designate that this item will be heard at 10 a.m. on November 2nd in order to finalize the posting of that public hearing.
All right, thank you. I don't know if Naftali, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think CAO has covered it. I'm just available to answer my questions.
Any supervisors have questions for Naftali? No? Okay, well, we have a motion. I'll just go to public comment first. And so as we go to public comment, there's one hand up, 7108. And press *6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning. I went to the county website and tried to look at the maps. The maps that are on there are just colors on a piece of paper. It's really difficult to tell exactly where those lines are. There's no roads. There's only a few towns. The second district, I'm still trying to figure out where exactly those lines are. So, and it says on the website, click this and it'll zoom in and you can see all this other stuff. Well, zoom in and all that other stuff didn't pop up. So the maps are really, really crappy. And the website, they said, press this and your comments and stuff will be included. And then they send you something that you're supposed to click on. Well, you click on it and it says it unsubscribes you. So I'm still questioning whether my feedback got in there at all. So I would really appreciate it if the maps had some more information so people could see exactly where these lines are being drawn. And I'm in the second district and I didn't like any of them. So that's my comments. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. And 7454, it's your turn. Welcome.
Yeah, I agree with Bonnie. The maps were difficult to decipher. So I don't know if and I was unfortunately was pulled away when you had your staff report on this thing was being given. This is a group of individuals or a consultant group that are drawing these maps with input from the public, is my understanding. And I did see something on Eco News, and I think Tom Wheeler and the group was there, had some concerns regarding that. And of course, they is one of these things the public kind of wants to know how much sway does this group have. I've been told misinformation possibly that this you guys make the final decision. Which I believe is true, and then people said no, you don't. So I really don't know how that process is going to work a little, and there seems to be a lot of lack of clarity out there for people understanding the whole process. So I apologize if that was given, during the presentation. Sometimes by technology, I got kicked off the phone there and couldn't get back until now. So those are some questions. Interesting redistricting I saw in some areas. And the public always wants to know how it's, whenever you have advisory committees, you have like the Measure C committee, and a lot of times you go completely astray from what they recommend. So how much help those people aren't wasting their time, and then you guys just go ahead and take something completely different than what's being brought forward. We'd like to have a little bit of advance input. The other thing, I'm not hearing your 30-second buzzer there, Virginia. So I don't know if people are getting up to the 3 minutes thinking there is going to be a little warning. There doesn't appear to be. And so thank you for my time to comment on this item.
All right, thank you, Ken. It is beeping. I will hold it up closer to the microphone. All right, so there are no other hands up. I'll go back to the board. And Naphtali, Supervisor Wilson, I'll be right with you. I was curious if you have a real quick way to explain how, the relationship between the committee that we have, the CCRP and the work they're doing, and the consultants. And, not like we need to spend a whole lot of time, but just a little clarification I think people would appreciate.
So the appointed advisory, the Redistricting Advisory Commission, is responsible for hearing public input and evaluating how the public opinion influences the way the lines are drawn. And the consultants are responsible for drawing the lines in a way that takes into account all of the public opinion and balances that with population totals that were collected during the 2020 census. And so the advisory committee really ensures that the public opinion that we've heard during meeting or received in other avenues is represented by those draft maps. So so far we've had one round of drafts, and then an additional draft will be released tomorrow. And so that process is going to continue before it reaches your board for final approval. Does that help clarify? Or
and what is CCRP's role?
CCRP has led all of our outreach efforts, and they do have staff that are staffing the meetings of the Redistricting Advisory Commission at this point. So we're working in partnership with that, but predominantly doing outreach and community work.
Okay, thank you. And I know Supervisor Bohn, you have a question, but Supervisor Wilson's hand was up first, but your hand is now down, Supervisor Wilson. So can I go to Supervisor? Huh?
I can raise it again if you'd like. I mean, just,
okay, no,
just
go
put
ahead.
it down because you'd like.
All right, so we'll go to Supervisor
I just want to say that, I just wanted to comment that I've also heard from members of the public some concerns related to the maps, and not just where the lines are drawn necessarily, but really sort of the precision of those maps, or how, whether they can read them, whether they can download them, and whether or not they are feeling like they can review other public comment in timely manner. I'm just saying there's some criticisms out there. I just want to acknowledge that they exist, and I'm sure staff is written about that.
Thank you. Supervisor Bohn?
I've popped on into a couple of the meetings just to listen and been the only one there. So there hasn't been a lot of input, and and there never is. I know, I always say it, 10 years ago, they moved the line 200 feet the other side of my house, and they did it on the input of 2 people. And I know both their names, but on the input of 2 people. So, I mean, this is what happens. And so now this year we're a little more robust. We have the Center for Rural Policy, and we have a consultant and we have a advisory committee that we all had a hand in picking and put people on there. So I guarantee I haven't been really fond of any of them at all, because I lose some people that I've worked really hard with and everything else. And I hope the new map shows something different. But if not, we're elected by a district. We're authorized to, we're charged with serving Humboldt County. So I'm probably gonna follow the grin and bear it, follow what the committee does, because we've put more time and effort into this committee, and and so not to politicize it, just do what they feel is best and what input they get and go from there. So but like I said, I don't think any of us are going to like it. I only had a difference of 162 people out of my district, so why change mine at all? But with that being said, they have decided to, so for whatever reason. So I think we can fight it or live with it, and I guess we'll find out.
Alrighty. Is there a motion, though? I think what we're looking for is need a motion to schedule the public hearing for November 2nd at 10 a.m. Is that correct, Alicia? Staff recommendation with 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Correct, 10 a.m.
I'll make the motion to go with staff recommendation with the time at 10 a.m. That includes the post and publish as well.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And seeing no other supervisor hands up, and Nikki, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure can. Supervisor Bohn?
Sure.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to departmental items. The first one comes to us from the Department of Health and Human Services Administration and is regarding the temporary employment of a retired annuitant. So Director Beck.
Good morning, supervisors. I'm Connie Beck, Health and Human Services Director. This is regarding Bridget Bush, Senior Substance Abuse Counselor. She retired from the county employment on August 27th with 20 years of experience working with DHHS. A replacement Senior Substance Abuse Counselor has not yet been appointed, and Ms. Bush has graciously agreed to stay on in an extra help capacity. Government Code Section 7522.56 requires that Ms. Bush's post-retirement employment commence no earlier than 180 days after her retirement day, which is February 27th, 2022, unless your board in a public meeting certifies the nature of the employment and that the appointment is necessary to fill critically needed position before 180 days have passed. Accordingly, DHHS is seeking your board's approval of Ms. Bush as a temporary retired annuitant, Senior Substance Abuse Counselor.
All right, thank you, Connie, or Director Beck. Any questions at this moment before we go to public comment? So going to the public comment period, and at this point, I do not see any hands up, so we'll return to the board. Any board members have questions or willing to make staff recommendation? Move to approve staff recommendation.
I'll move to approve staff recommendation.
All right. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And seeing no other comments, can we have a roll call vote? Nikki.
Supervisor Bohn?
Please, yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone?
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Director Beck. And our next item also comes to us from DHHS administration, and it's regarding a memorandum of understanding with the Hoopla Valley Tribe. And Director Beck, is that you again?
Yes, it is. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I don't actually have a presentation today. MOUs normally would go, memorandums of understanding would normally go on consent. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Hoopla Tribal Council, Tribal Social Services staff, as well as our child welfare staff for continuing the important work that we've done together. As your board is aware, the Hoopla tribe is their own sovereign nation, and it's essential that there is a process to ensure timely shared decision-making relating to cases involving tribal children. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to thank the tribe publicly for the work that is happening with these children and their families. I am hoping that the Social Services Director, Maris Obi, and or others have been able to call in. I know that they were having a hard time connecting to the Zoom, so I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak if they're available.
All right, so if any of those folks mentioned by Director Beck are listening, press star 9 to raise your hand so we know that you're there. And then, okay, and then 0417, press star 6 to unmute. Welcome.
Hi, Maris Obi, Hoopla Human Services Director.
Welcome.
I just wanted to reiterate what Connie Beck is saying about our working relationship and our success in getting the language well represented for both parties in the MOU, and that we look forward to going forward with all the parts of the working parts of this MOU. And her staff did a really amazing job with us.
Great. Thank you, Maris.
That's it.
Sorry that there's a challenge with the Zoom getting in. Is there anyone else on the phone of the folks Connie mentioned? Connie, did you want to, what other names were there?
I can't see any.
Okay. All right. So I do see Supervisor Madrone has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I too want to thank Hoopla, all their staff, all their folks, and Director Beck and her department for great work together in collaborating and working to protect the community. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Madrone. Right, we will go to see if there's anyone. Oh, Supervisor Bohn.
Yeah, and this is a good time to thank both all the tribes and Connie Beck and her team, because we're doing the same government to government type of thing at Trinidad, and they're and we're getting some resolution to what was an issue that needed to be addressed a little bit closer. And I think our team has stepped up, and we've held quite a few meetings up at Trinidad, and it's gone fairly well. Perfect? No, but we're fixing a non-perfect situation. But forefront, everybody has agreed, and I think this is going to go with all our tribes. It's the kids that are number one, and I think that's what we have to put first, and hopefully we can get there.
Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. We'll go to public comment, and we have one hand up, and that is 7454. Press star 6. There you go.
Thank you, Virginia. Yeah, this the topic, and me, I'm always about, taking care of the old people, the kids and dogs that are important to me. Is this the one that it actually had to go before resolution with the state attorney general to get things going right? We had something regarding children. I'm so happy to hear that we're working with the tribe on this particular topic. I've seen in the past the government to government thing and the lack of possibly understanding the sovereign nation relationship, between the tribes not being all that functional in Humboldt County. I always feel that the tribes, especially the children in this circumstance and their wishes, should be paramount. They're the people that were here first. They're, in my opinion, the caretakers of the environment. And if this same kind of collaboration was going on regarding concerns regarding planning use on or near their reservation or their sacred site, that would be a great improvement. I have not seen that really happening. They have objections to certain kind of projects in their area, basically cannabis ones related to be either adjacent or in their watersheds and things. And I just have not seen that government to government thing. So hopefully it's a trend that will continue on. And hopefully the county will find it in their best interest to work with our local people here, the tribes, who, in my opinion, are so important, as far as the protectors of what the rest of us enjoy here about Humboldt County. So that's a shout out to the tribe and a shout out to Connie for hopefully bringing this to a good resolution.
Great. Thank you, Kent. So no other hands up, so we'll return to the board. And we're looking for a motion to approve the Memorandum of Understanding with all the other parts of the staff recommendation. There.
So moved.
Right. In that technical language. Is there a second? To approve staff recommendation?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. Any other comments from the board or staff? All right, seeing none, Nikki, can we have a roll call vote?
Yeah, Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Bohn?
Yes, please.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
And Supervisor Bass? Yes. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Great. So this next item comes to us from the Department of Health and Human Services Social Services Division, lots of words this morning, and it's regarding appointments to the IHSS Advisory Board. So at this time, the Board of Supervisors adjourns as the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors and reconvenes as a governing board of the Humboldt County In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority. And so I'd like to go to staff for a report.
Good morning, board. This is David Gothier. I am the director of the IHSS Public Authority, and we're here to just take care of some routine business regarding membership for the IHSS Advisory Board. The advisory board has gone through some turnover on members, and they've been proactively recruiting for new memberships. And so we have 4 people to present to you today: Ms. Sylvia DeRuy, Ms. Vivian Deniston, Mr. Robert Overlees, I apologize for the mispronunciation, and Ms. Sherry Hall. All of whom have been interviewed and reviewed by the board, and they do recommend their membership to the team. And so we're just looking to get your approval to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And I was pleased. I know 3 of the 4, so it does sound like they've been doing some actual recruitment, which is a good thing. Any supervisors have a question or comment at this time before we go to public comment? Seeing none, is there a member of public who'd comment on this item? We do have one, and if you are interested, press *9 to raise your hand. We have 7454.
As those of you know, I've been around for quite a while on this IHHS situation. I only recognize 2 of the names, but my memory isn't as good as it was. Virginia's probably better than mine. This is a very important function that this board plays to advise what's going on here. And I just hope to continue to people to understand what an important part the IHHS workers play, especially during these COVID situations. Again, they're always the caretakers of our elderly, who seem to be kind of swept underneath the rug a lot of times. These people, of course, work for close to minimum wage. And so for this board to come forward and support them in other endeavors and other ways we can help these people with the in-home healthcare workers to be the best that they can be is always important. To see that they are compensated correctly and don't go through 2 or 3 years of having to strike and come to every single meeting to get what I felt was a minimal increase in their pay. What they do get is, I'm sure, greatly appreciated. So I just wanted to have take this opportunity to shout out to the people who are willing to be on this board, and to all the people out there that take care of our elderly, which is something that is not an easy job. So anyway, thanks to those people. Thanks for my opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you, Kent. We have no other hands up, so we will go back to the board. I think we're looking for a motion to approve the 3 regular members and the suggested alternate member.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Seconds are hard to come by today. All right, any further comment from the board? Okay, Nikki, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Supervisor Bohn.
Please.
Supervisor Bushnell.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson.
Yes.
Supervisor Bass.
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone. Supervisor Madrone. So he must have dropped off. Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Oh, four.
Yeah, 4-0. Sorry.
All right. So at this point, we'll adjourn as the IHSS Governing Board and reconvene as the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. We have, I was going to ask Director Ford, do you have an assessment of time of what you believe will be needed for this? Because we do have a time set at 10:30. So
this should be a fairly short item. It is a little unusual in that it's a appeal by an applicant of an approved permit. It really revolves around a single condition.
Okay.
So it may be able to be done in 28 minutes.
28. Okay. Well, we'll shoot for it. How's that? All right. So we will go to this next item is a public hearing, and it comes up from the Planning and Building Department as regarding the appeal of a Planning Commission decision. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. I do want to give board members a chance to share any ex parte communication if there has been any before this item begins. Supervisor Bushnell.
I had a conversation with the, I guess it would be the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
None.
Okay. None. Thank you. All right. So, Director Ford, I'm turning this over to you.
Thank you, Chair Bass. Good morning. Good morning, board. John Ford and Cliff Johnson to present the Lasik Farms appeal. I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson to give a brief overview of the appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ford. My name is Cliff Johnson with the Planning and Building Department. I just want to confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So this is an appeal of the August 19th Planning Commission's approval of a conditional use permit for commercial cannabis cultivation on a 40-acre parcel. The appeal is filed by the applicant as they are objecting to a condition of approval that was placed on the project for water storage by the Planning Commission. The Planning Department supports the appellant in this appeal. The conditional use permit is for 24,687 square feet of pre-existing forest cannabis. 20,000 square feet of that is full sun outdoor. The remainder would be light deprivation in 3 greenhouses. Power is provided by solar and wind with a generator backup. The irrigation source is a permitted groundwater well that was installed in March of this year with an estimated yield of 40 gallons per minute. And the annual water use is 360,000 gallons. This shows the location of the Lasik Farms project site, approximately 1 mile west of the intersection of Alder Point Road and Cemetery Road. Access is from Sunset Ridge Road from the north. This shows the site plan for Lasik Farms. The orange area is full sun outdoor in pots. The green is the 3 greenhouses that is for light deprivation, cannabis cultivation. The appeal centers on a single condition of approval that was placed on the project by the Planning Commission. And that came during the public hearing as a couple of members of the public expressed concern over groundwater use and the drought. And so the Planning Commission did impose this condition, which states that the applicant shall provide 50% of the annual water demand, 180,000 gallons, with rain catchment utilizing runoff from existing structures on site. The remainder of that language just talks about how to implement that condition. The applicant has made what we believe to be 2 arguments. The first is that They're not required under the CMMLUO, which is the first ordinance, to maintain any forbearance of water or develop rainwater catchment because there's no surface water diversion. And that is accurate. The only reference in the CMMLUO to forbearance is related to surface water diversion. The second appeal argument is that they believe that it is beyond the scope and duty of the Planning Commission to impose a requirement for water forbearance, and it is an unlawful condition not supported in the CMMLUO. So we actually believe it's not beyond the scope of the Planning Commission to impose water storage and forbearance. It is a requirement of the decision maker to find that the project would not be detrimental to the health, safety, or public welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. However, we do believe that imposing such a requirement would need to be justified. And in this case, the evidence seems to indicate that the well would be sufficient for its purpose and would not be detrimental to the public's health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. All available evidence indicates that the well is sufficient for the needs of the project. At 40 gallons per minute, that would produce far more than is needed for 360,000 gallons per year. So this slide shows you the well completion report. You can see depth to first water is at 26 feet, and that's important because of the location of this well, which I'll show you in a minute. Estimated yield 40 gallons per minute. The well is 200 feet in depth and is installed in a mix of shale and sandstone. This is an oblique view that I pulled off of Google Earth, and it shows you the location of the Lassick Farms property, which is on this ridge line here. This is another view showing it, so you can kind of see that this is on top of a ridge. And then the last slide that I want to show you here is the topographic map. And this is showing the location of the well, which is this triangle in the center, which is at 2120 feet above sea level. This light blue line shows you the 1920 elevation above sea level. And so that's 20 feet below the surface of the well. So basically that's corresponding to the bottom of the well. And that just shows you the topography of the area and how steep this area is on the ridgeline. So with that, I know we want to be sort of quick here. So I just want to say that the Planning Department's recommendation is to approve the appeal and approve the conditional use permit. And I'll turn that back over to the board and answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. And is the applicant on and wishing to speak as well, or appellant applicant?
Yes, I am.
Oh, welcome,
Hi.
Jamie.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you all for taking the time to review this appeal. I'm sure you've had time to look over the email that I sent you last Wednesday, which summarizes everything that I believe. And it's also in the appeal, which I hope you've had time to read as well, that was included in and filed with the county. I think that Cliff pretty much hit it on the head there. So if you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them. I wanted to also mention, if you have any questions regarding hydrology of Humboldt County or my well specifically, David Fish from Fish Drilling is available to join in at any time if you have questions for him.
Thank you, Jamie. And do any board members at this time have any questions for Jamie or Mr. Fish? Rex? Need Supervisor Bohn?
To Mr. Fish, I mean, David, how long have you been drilling wells in Humboldt County, and what can you say the validity of this well is? I think it pretty much says it in the report, but could you give a little bit of your background? Because I know you're becoming more popular at these events than ever, and I just think I don't think people realize that the status that you bring forward. So
do we know what phone number he has so we can unmute him?
I spoke with his secretary a few moments ago, and he was ready to go. So I don't know
Okay.
what.
Is this 3041? Are you Mr. Fish? The other Mr. Fish? Press *6 to unmute so we can find out. Oh. If you are listening, 3041, please press *6. I'm not seeing, yeah, because as far as the attendee list, we only have we have a hand up, but it is not this person. So
ask Nikki if she recognizes. She used to work for him, I think.
I'm actually texting him right now because I can't pull his number up to see what the last 4 digits are.
Thanks,
all right,
Nikki.
You're welcome.
And while she's doing that, we can go to Supervisor Wilson while we get Mr.
Am I unmuted?
Oh wait, Mr. Fish. Yes, you are. It is you. Welcome.
Sorry, technology and well drillers don't go along.
All right, so Supervisor, you had a question.
So,
I'm not hearing anything. It's I'm not sure. You might be in a bad location.
Thing.
We are not.
Are we there?
Wait, we hear you now.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
You hear us.
Okay, we can't hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure how I can else do.
Wow. He's not in good connectivity there.
Yeah. Let me try it back.
Well, while he is trying to do that, go to Supervisor Wilson for your question or comment that you had.
Yeah, thank you. This question for staff. It has to do with the well log that was submitted. It has a static depth of 20 feet, and it says that after, which is fairly shallow for static depth of groundwater. I was just and when you guys are referencing like whether it will potentially impact surface water on a drawdown, it drew down 173 feet, I think is what it was, which is pretty much to the bottom of the well, which is at 200 feet. And so I guess what I'm kind of wondering about, I mean, that's when you guys did your lateral distance impact analysis, you kind of did it from the bottom of the well, but not from the 20-foot elevation or, the 20 feet below ground surface. And I was just kind of wondering, like, does that happen with, you see what I'm saying? Like if it's drawing and it's at 20 feet, then the impact to surface water is a lot closer than if it's from the bottom than it's from laterally from the bottom of the well. Because, and frankly, you have a cone of depression, right? From that. And so I was just kind of wondering, I guess I'm a little bit questioning that analysis, and maybe you can draw me in a little bit better on that.
Yeah, let me take a stab at that. If I can, I'll share this one exhibit here again. So this really kind of shows, I think, the majority of our analysis relative to your question. You can see the well with the triangle, and you can actually see some of the adjacent surface waters that are mapped here in the blue lines here. So we do look at where the depth to first water is, which would probably be at that 20-foot contour, probably right about in this area. And then try to anticipate if the well was being used, so it was drawing down the full extent, what would that have the potential to impact? And in doing that, we do sometimes, if we have questions, contact well driller or other experts. In this case, because of the topography of it and the fact that they really don't seem to be needing to use the well at anywhere near its estimated yield, we felt that that was probably appropriate. So I'll leave this up here until you want to tell me you've seen it.
I guess I have a follow-up question for you then, staff. What was the estimated yield was 40 gallons per minute? Is that what was in the report, I think? And so what do you think was your estimated use that you would estimate on gallons per minute during summertime?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Thank you, Supervisor Wilson. So the maximum irrigation needs for the project are reported at 2,469 gallons per day in August, which would be approximately 1.7 gallons per minute if the well was being utilized continuously over a 24-hour period.
I appreciate that. And then I just had one sort of also on the letter from Mr. Fish that came in. He was referencing his concerns about storage in general and sort of the toxicity, whether or not the tanks will get burned, and the toxicity if they were plastic, and the toxicity of tanks if they were metal tanks. And do we use that in our analysis for other sites that are doing storage? I mean, I guess if we're raising one concern about the toxicity of water storage, this is the first I've heard of that as being a concern, and I'm just wondering how much do we take that into consideration, not having heard that concern before.
Good question. We typically have not. The idea being that the more water storage you have, the more likely you are to be able to combat fire. I do know that in the Lake County fires a couple of years ago, was that maybe 4 years ago, there ended up being an issue with some and more likely to be empty water tanks that actually melted and created some problems when the fire ran through some of those sites. But that has not typically been something that we've taken into consideration, because we do require, in addition to water storage for irrigation, water storage for firefighting purposes.
My last question is in terms of pumping, especially at the top of the watershed like this. As I've said, it is the most impactful place to pull water from a watershed, because that's where that's where your cold water comes from. But is there any do we expect any sort of diurnal effect during the summertime in terms of when water is being pulled by trees and other vegetation? Is that something that we take into account at all?
That's a great question. That's not something that we've typically looked at.
Okay, that's all for my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Wilson. And Supervisor Bohn, I do think we have Mr. Fish back on the line. And so thank you. I see you're unmuted. Go ahead, Mr. Fish.
Yes, can you hear me now?
At this moment, yes.
Okay, great. So Rex, what was your question again? I was listening to other comments.
Well, and you've come up in a few other discussions, both in front of us and the Planning Commission, about your expertise, how long you've been doing this, where you've done this, how many, I think you told me one time how many counties you had done this in the state of California, because we were talking about the permitting of wells. And it was pretty interesting. But I think a little background on you, that I don't think you just started doing this and stuff because people were kind of questioning your expertise and everything. So I was just a little background for all of us. So just to give you a quick background, my
Educational background is hydrogeology. I have a master's in hydrogeology. I have a PhD in environmental management. I also have been in the water well business and pump business and water treatment business for going on 40 years. Started off working for my dad who did it. My company currently works in 50 counties in California, Southern Oregon, and Nevada. Sometimes we go out to Utah and consult on bigger projects. So my expertise is academic as well as practical. And I've seen, some people counties make mistakes, go back and correct them. I've seen them make a good call in the right way. So in general, I try to be more pragmatic as to a balance of commerce and a balance of environmental protection.
Great. Thank you. I've heard about plastic tanks a lot because the main thing is not just the environmental and what it costs, what's involved with making something that big in plastic. We've had that discussion come up, but the visual of putting, what are we talking about? We're talking about putting 36, if they do 5,000 gallon tanks, 36 plastic tanks, which are going to be visually pleasing to everybody, I'm sure. But we have those going all over the place. But I worry, and I think our planners do a great job on, and just Cliff was able to answer all the water questions and everything. But I know we're going to get 15% of our annual rainfall if the weather department's even close in the next 8 days. So, but what we've done is I think we have 472 acres of permitted cannabis in Humboldt County, and I'd say probably 25 or 30% are on water storage or full ponds, and then some are on, forbearance, all of them obviously, and things like that. But we're looking at 1.9 million acres of forested land in Humboldt County, almost 750,000 of it public. And the days of manageable tree forests, as we're seeing as everything burns up, we have a lot of trees at 60 gallons a day. We don't have those healthy forests anymore. We have 400 trees per acre, which I don't think is healthy, but I hate to see this being used as a weapon. I'm glad people are aware. I think water is the most important thing in the world, and I think our planning and building department does a great job on searching that out, knowing what's going to be thrown at them. But I think I've got no problem with Mr. Newman, doing this, but the farm in question, it's so funny because I really appreciated your statement. You were afraid to have this go down the road any farther, so you agreed to it. But you agreed to $100,000 more investment. At the same time, the cannabis farmers are actually asking us, can you help us get through this time of low prices, basically go after the black market, the 1,000 unlicensed dispensaries in LA, and the hundreds of tons of product coming from Oregon. And they're asking us to step up that and help these guys so we have a long-term, smaller vision, and we support the people that are doing it. So I just want to say I appreciate the planning and building, and I think we should probably look at, if we're worried about the water, we should be talking with our federal, state partners and anybody about, looking at what their lands are doing to the water basins. I mean, you go up to Ruth and some of those creeks are running because all the trees burnt down, but they wouldn't have been running if all the trees were there. I'd rather the trees all be there, but we do have to manage our forests and not use. But I mean, to throw this $100,000 at the end of a project that was fully approved and then to put the person who's been waiting, I imagine, just like in 2 to 3 to 4 years to get everything done is a pretty strict nut to follow. So I appreciate staff's report on this.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Bohn. I don't see any of their board member hands at the moment, so I think I'm just going to go to public comment and we can come back. We have one hand up at this moment, 7454. And press *6 to unmute.
Ken Sawatsky, a lot of us were very pleased with this unanimous decision that came from the Planning Commission because it was reflecting what I think probably should be done under these circumstances. Maybe I'm not reading this, but there's no requirement I see here to have all these tanks there. Maybe I don't understand that. It says 50% of the annual water demand to be developed from rainwater catchment. And the most common procedure of that is to use a pond, which is I don't know. I'm guessing everybody's using them for this kind of volume of water because they're economically much more feasible rather than being $100,000. I really don't know how much a pond costs. That's the trend we have out there. Something that has bothered me for a long time is, I'm not going to say anything negative about your well driller. Sounds like he's got some expertise there. But the question that you should be asking is, have you had your on-call staff person, your licensed hydrological engineer, I believe, works for Lake or something, has he looked at this and made a determination that gives you the basis to say that, you really, this is an expert, this is science. I really appreciate all the questions that Mike Wilson had there, Supervisor Wilson, regarding this. I'm a little bit familiar with the well situation. Maybe I didn't see it here, but I thought this was drilled and that well log was done in March, when that is our heaviest water rainfall time. And technically, this is a new water source for this project, my understanding. And technically, it probably should have been under 2.0 as far as addressing that. So where was the water coming from before to do this particular project, which is 360,000 gallons? Now, that your staff says that doesn't sound high, but it sounds extremely high to me for 20,000 square foot full sun outdoor. I've seen some very, very low uses of water here. So apparently you have extremely high uses for 4,614 foot, what looks like a depth grow. So I'm going to have to say that I really don't think that analysis, as far as this being small water usage, it is a large grow as far as being a half acre grow, it appears to be. But that seems to be an inordinate amount of water being used here. I highly recommend that you go ahead and follow the lead of your unanimous planning department on this particular one. And if nothing else, if you're going to move forward on this, get a determination from a real expert with the shingle on the wall. No, nothing regarding negative, Mr. Fish there, but there was one time when I was witched a well, and one of the well drillers, no if it was him, but one of the major ones, came in and they blew dust for 600 foot because they moved over 6 foot away from where I knew the water source was at 20 feet down. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on this, and I hope you go ahead and deny this appeal and maybe clarification as far as having them do a pond.
Thank you, Ken. And I see no other hands up, so we will go back. I do see Jamie has her hand up.
I do, Virginia. I wanted to clarify a couple things. Lassick Farms has 2 spring-fed ponds, which store approximately 300,000 gallons of water that are not used for irrigation. So those are left for wildlife and for fire suppression. And with the last caller, I would definitely beg to differ on the reference he made to Dave Fish. Dave Fish is the premier expert on hydrology for Humboldt County. So if we need to ask him some more questions regarding my well, we should do so. And second, in reference to his mention of where did the water come from before this, I had a perfectly functioning well right next to my new well. Did I want to drill a new well? No, I did not. The reason I had to do that is because state law, state requirements for cannabis cultivation require that you have a permitted well. When you have a new well driller come in and ask them to permit a well that's already drilled, they, they're not too fond of that. They would like to permit a well that they drilled. And the well that I had before was not as deep as this one, and it produced perfectly fine. So I had to incur the cost of drilling a new well because of regulatory compliance. And I can say that I have no problem having a permitted well. It's just that myself, along with a few other people in our area, had a well that was unpermitted when I believed it to be permitted. So I just wanted to clarify those couple things and encourage anybody that has a question for Dave to go ahead and ask it.
Okay, thank you. And I did want to tell folks who are on waiting for the 10:30 time set, it will be delayed. So don't go away. It'll be here eventually, but in case anyone was joining us. Right. Yes.
And just point of clarification, if I'm not right, Jamie, since it's a legacy, I imagine it's a legacy farm that somebody was already there before you. By unpermitted, you mean a well that was drilled before permitting was necessary, I would believe, right?
Correct. We drilled that well back in 2001, and we were under the impression that it was permitted. It was not permitted. And I can tell you that this property was raw property that was homesteaded by my husband beginning in 1982 was purchased in that subdivision out of the Farian Ranch that was split. And it was homesteaded from 1982 on. And my husband was the original owner after it was converted from a cattle ranch to a subdivision.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Wilson?
Yeah. This is a question maybe for planning. I mean, wasn't a permit required in 2001 for wells? All wells were required to have permits, correct? And
yes, it should have been permitted at the time, as the applicant had mentioned. They thought it was permitted, whether it was or wasn't. I would point out that from a pre-existing standpoint, this cultivation site, pre-existing, one of the things that the public brought up is that this is a new water source. What's being conveyed here is this is not a new water source. This is a permitting of an old water source, a pre-existing water source. So this is consistent with the baseline analysis that's been done. And when CEQA contemplates those things, it doesn't look at whether or not there was a permit or not. It looks at whether or not something was pre-existing or not. And there was a pre-existing well that did serve the irrigation.
Okay, thank you. That's kind of the nexus that I was looking for. So that's basically contemplated in our CEQA document. I see where that is. Yeah, okay. I just have to say though, I mean, it does make me a little grumpy about, and I understand why someone doesn't want to have to rebuild a well that they already built already. But when we do the stuff that's unpermitted, this is kind of what comes out of that. And whose fault is it? I don't know. I mean, it's whether people know what's going on or don't know what's going on. Anyone listening, all wells require permits. They did back then too, and they have for a very long time. But that's how it goes. Sometimes we know things and sometimes we don't. It's just kind of how it is. All right. Well, I appreciate that analysis and I appreciate answering those questions.
Thank you. And Supervisor Bushnell, I saw your hand. No, it's not. Okay. All right. Well, we can ask questions, or we do have the staff report and the recommendation made by staff. So is there someone who'd like to make that motion at this time? Supervisor Bushnell?
I'll make the motion that we approve staff recommendations.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And Supervisor Bushnell, your hand is still up. Did you want to mention something? Okay. All right, then in that case, I guess we're ready for a roll call vote. Nikki.
Okay, Supervisor Bohn?
Yes, please.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
And is Supervisor Madrone on?
Yes, he's on.
Yes, yes, but no. Yes, but no.
You're voting no? Voting no. Okay.
Voting no.
Okay, so the motion passes 4-1.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we will close the public hearing, and we're not too far off from the 10:30 time set. Thank you, everyone from Planning and Building who was here.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to thank everybody very much for giving this attention. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I love your background. Is that live or on?
That's live. Here, I'll hold it up. This is Abalone Point, Shelter Cove.
Beautiful. Okay.
Set it up like this to give you guys a little reprieve from the office.
I did appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we're going to go to the next item. It's a little bit clunky, and I apologize. This is going to be our, it comes to it's from the CAO's office, and it's the initial public meeting of the Public Finance Authority for the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. So at this time, we will adjourn as the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Public Financing Authority for the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. Given the staff report, it looks like we need to do a roll call, and those of us, I guess I can say Supervisor Bushnell and Madrone, you can probably go have a snack or something, because this only involves the 3 board members. Supervisor Wilson, myself, and Supervisor Bohn. Is that accurate, Scott? Okay. Or do I go to Alicia? For that, I'll do roll call, but I just want to make sure I've got the right 3 members.
Chair Bass, if I may, yes, you have the correct members of the Public Finance Authority.
Okay, and then we have our public members. So at this time, can we please have a roll call?
Absolutely, Chair Bass. And also, if I may, just remind the public that this is a meeting of the Public Financing Authority for the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. Members of the public who wish to comment during public comment may call 720-707-2699 and enter meeting ID 878-7443-8856 and press *9 on their phone, which will raise their hand. I'll go ahead and commence with roll call. Supervisor or Public Finance Authority Member Bohn.
Aye. Yes.
Member Wilson.
Present.
Member Drop.
Present.
Member Callison. Member Callison.
So we just need to, hold on a second. 9487, if you happen to be Tim Callison, can you please press *6 to unmute and let us know if you are him, in case he's on the phone. I don't know. Okay, 9487. Can you press *6 to unmute so I know who you are? Well, we'll come back to that. Go ahead, Scott.
Member Callison is not present. And Member Bass.
Here.
Wonderful. You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Were you expecting Member Callison, or did he tell you ahead of time he wasn't going to be here?
I did not hear if Tim Callison was not going to be able to join. Tanner, had you heard anything from Tim?
Go ahead, Tanner. We can't hear you.
You have no audio, Tanner.
Press *6 to, it looks like we've got you in picture and on the phone, so press *6 to unmute yourself.
I believe he's present under Tanner Atherton with his hand raised.
Yeah, that's what I was I'm trying to find out. He just needs to do press *6 so we can actually. He'll be right back. I think that's what he said.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can, we'll figure it out. So, do we need Tanner right now, or do we wait till he gets back on?
That's okay, Chair. I could go ahead and walk us through the next steps so that we can stay on schedule. I do want to share a minor modification to the agenda. On the agenda, it states that the meeting of the Public Finance Authority will occur on December 16th. That is actually incorrect and an error. The next meeting of the Public Finance Authority will occur on December 14th at 10:30 a.m. As per the schedule, which is available online. We'll also ensure as staff that we agendize that accordingly for the correct date. Before we move into the presentation for today, I did want to just share on background for history that on June 29th, 2021, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution of intention to establish the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District, or the Samoa Peninsula EIFD or EFID. The proposed EFID consists of over 2,400 acres located southwest of the Samoa Bridge and will help fund infrastructure improvements as defined by guidance and input from the community to contribute to job growth and community prosperity. Later, on September 14th, the Public Finance Authority was formed and adopted a resolution directing the preparation of the IFP or Infrastructure Finance Plan. That draft is available here today and will be presented to your authority for review. As a reminder, and for background, the IFP was informed by a survey and a series of interviews of private property stakeholders in the EFID area, which was conducted by Humboldt State University CCRP, or California Center for Rural Policy, and also informed and guided in part by public and community input received by our office. The intent is for the IFP to go through a series of public hearings so that more public comment can be received to inform and shape the final infrastructure financing plan. And with that, before I turn it over to staff to do a presentation on the draft IFP, should we check again, Chair, to see if Public Finance Authority member Callison is present?
I did just get an email from him. If you guys can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know why it's doing that. I'm glad we figured that out early though. He just sent me an email saying that he is here, but he can't get his phone to unmute.
Huh. Did you probably try *6? Actually, does he have to raise his hand first and then press *6? Okay, so Tim, you have to press *9 first so we can see your hand go up. And press *9.
I don't see anyone else, Chair, in the meeting who actually could be Tim. I'm looking at all the participants. I don't see any participants who are not named.
I think it is
under public.
It is also good to note that there's not going to be any formal action taking place today.
It's merely a presentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because the way the agenda item is written, it's not that clear.
So Chair Bass, since it's really just a presentation, informational only, and Tim has indicated that he is present, just having audio difficulty, staff would recommend that we go ahead and proceed if that is all right with you. Okay.
Fine with me. Thank you.
Great. So I would like to introduce Joe Dieguez from Cosmont Companies. Cosmont Companies, they are a consultant who work with communities throughout the state of California, and they have a great deal of experience in helping communities to prepare and create EFIDs. And also Tanner Etherton of our office, whom you've met before during the formation and creation of the EIFD. I'm going to turn it over to Tanner and Joe to walk you through the draft IFP presentation, after which we have some brief updates that we can give to your authority before you reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
Hey, I have a question. It does have, I think we need to review what this looks like on our agenda next time, because it does ask for approval of the minutes. So it does sound like there's some action that should be happening right now. Is that?
That is correct. That is correct, Chair. Would you like to lead us through an approval of the minutes or call for motions?
Yeah, thank you. That's what happens. This is like 12 steps in it. Yeah, so there was, for the three of us on here, we did get a copy of the minutes. And is there a motion to approve?
Move approval of the minutes and the seconds.
And the second? Okay, I'll second it. I can. So, all right, we do have, we had a hand up and then the hand went down. All right, seeing no hands up, we'll go back to the board, the commission, or whatever we call this group, the authority. And maybe have a roll call vote, Scott.
Do we need public comment on that?
I did. I went down to look and there's no hands up.
Oh, okay.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes. Commissioner Bohn?
Yes.
Commissioner Drop?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yep.
Commissioner Callison is unable to respond via audio. And Commissioner Bass?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then it also does have public comment on non-agenda items. So if you're a member of the public and you want to comment on a non-agenda item, which falls under the purview of the EFID, this would be the moment. And I see no hands up, so we will go back to the authority. So yes, Scott, I'll go to you for a staff report, or Tanner, or Joe.
I'm going to pass it to Tanner and Joe for the presentation. Thank you.
Scott, I'll take it away. Let me just share my screen here and start the presentation. Can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tanner Etherton, Administrative Analyst with the Humboldt County Economic Development Division. I've been helping with the formation of the Small Peninsula EFID over the last year, including the preparation of the draft infrastructure financing plan with the help of county staff and consultation from Cosmont companies. As Scott mentioned, Cosmont Company specializes in economic development services. They've helped on several EFIDs throughout the state, and they've been a tremendous resource for our team. Pleasure to work with. So today I will be presenting the Small Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD, or as I often refer to it as EFID, and the Draft Infrastructure Financing Plan, or IFP. I'm going to start with a brief overview. We'll go over the contents of the IFP, and then I'll give some updates on next steps and timing. Humboldt County is well positioned for growth. Humboldt State becoming a polytechnic, the continued trend of urban rural migration, our budding legal cannabis industry, and several large development projects seem to indicate this trend will continue. This is particularly true for the Small Peninsula, where multiple development projects are already in the works. However, infrastructure deficiencies and economic barriers have often hindered development on the peninsula, and the county has been trying to come up with a solution to this for quite some time. As Scott mentioned, hosting community work groups, stakeholder meetings, and additional outreach and research. Eventually decided the EFID was the most appropriate mechanism, and in July, the Board of Supervisors initiated the process of establishing the Small Peninsula EIFD. This economic tool is a type of tax increment financing district, which captures the value of future development to then reinvest in the community infrastructure. The EFID is governed by the Public Financing Authority, or PFA, according to the Infrastructure Financing Plan, and the PFA oversees revision to the IFP, eventual debt issuances, approval of financial projects, and other governing activities. The goal of today's meeting is to present the draft IFP, answer any questions you may have, and to consider public comment, though no formal action will be taken at this time. The next steps include 3 public hearings, 30 days apart, to hear and incorporate additional feedback, as well as approval by the Board of Supervisors before final EFID formation. There will be extensive notification to the public of these meetings, and staff will be doing what it can to further encourage public engagement, as we believe this engagement is vital to the formation process. All EFID documentation, such as the draft IFP, schedule, resolutions, EFID updates, and how you can engage in the process are available on the Economic Development Division's website, gohumco.com. First, I'd like to quickly review the mechanics of tax increment financing, or TIF. TIF allows a district to take a portion of its incremental growth and assess property value to then reinvest in the community. This graph is just for illustration, but it's still based on estimations and real figures from the Small Peninsula EFID, and makes the concept a little easier to understand. In purple here, we have the current assessed value of all property within the district for the 2021 fiscal year. This is our baseline assessed value, or base year, and any increase in the total assessed value above this baseline is incremental growth. And a portion of that property tax from this incremental growth then becomes available to the TIF district, or in our case, the EFID. In blue, we see the incremental growth would be if there was no new development on the peninsula. This just assumes a 2% annual growth. the existing assessed value over 50 years. Now, the light blue section is the assessed value if the proposed development does take place. Our IFP is only looking at development over the next 10 years, at which point we assume some stabilization and then account for the 2% annual growth out to year 50. This then leaves the county, the district, and other tax entities with an increased amount of incremental tax revenue. The EFID is a new tool, but it is not the first of its kind. We have gotten a lot of questions about how an EFID differs from RDAs or traditional IFDs, which use similar TIF mechanisms. One of the more notable differences would be the governing body, normally made up entirely by the county board, and EFID rather is governed by the PFA, which consists of 3 members of the board of supervisors and 2 members of the public. There's also a much larger range of infrastructure projects that can be funded under an EFID. And this allows the district to have much more flexibility in the infrastructure it funds so it can adapt with the market and the interests of the community. Although there is no voter approval required for the formation of the EFID, the issuance of bonds does require 55% approval and has a term limit of 45 years from bond issuance. Lastly, CEQA documentation is required on a project-by-project basis rather than before implementation. Again, this just type of infrastructure to be funded, but still requires EIR to be conducted for particular infrastructure projects. Okay, so now on to the actual IFP. As required by EFID law, the Small Peninsula EFID IFP includes a description of the district, a description of proposed facilities and development, a finding of community-wide significance, a financing section, goals of the district, and appendices, including a legal description, fiscal impact analysis, and an incremental revenue analysis. So here's a map of the proposed EFID boundary. This is a map I actually developed while I was still an intern with the county. Just to clarify, it is purely illustrative, as a legal description of the district and a survey map are still under construction and will be included in the IFP and available upon completion. This map is helpful for reference, however, and helps meet EFID law by defining the location of development projects. The district currently encompasses all the parcels south of the 255 bridge. And in light gray here, we have public land or non-taxable, darker gray, development areas that are taxable. We created 4 sub areas, outlined district property, and the 3 terminal sites. The Small Peninsula EFID covers approximately 2,243 acres, or just 0.08% of the county's land. Based on past research, the district contains approximately 1,600 acres in commercially zoned property, 30 acres of residentially zoned property, 20 businesses, 150 residential units, and 450 residents. Its most recently assessed value is approximately $49.5 million, or just 0.32% of the county total. And it is estimated that this will increase by $724.7 million over the next 10 years based on proposed development projects. We can give you a little brief breakdown of those development projects and their taxable value. First, we have the Aquaculture Project, which is the Nordic Aqua Farm sustainable land-based Atlantic salmon fish farm. This is continuing to progress really smoothly, and I believe they're still offering tours of the site. Those are very informative and enlightening. For anyone interested, feel free to contact our department and we can put you in contact with someone who can get you on those tours. Many of these next developments are based off the Samoa Town Master Plan, currently underway thanks to Danco. This project will provide hundreds of much needed houses to the area, as well as acres of commercial property for industrial, mixed, and recreational use. This project is already coming along beautifully. And again, encourage people to go out there and check it out for yourselves. Lastly, we have some projects provided to us by the Harbor District, which includes infrastructure to support potential offshore wind farm, as well as additional aquaculture and support facilities. Due to the lack of concrete information, there are some developments which have been left out of the assessment. These include developments such as the transcontinental Google fiber optic line, which will go from Singapore and land on the Samoa Peninsula. There's also potential for further development of the town of Fairhaven and acres of undeveloped industrial and commercial property. So the implementation part of the IFP, we need to give regional and community-wide significance report. And we found that the implementation of the EFID has long-lasting community-wide significance, which promotes economic prosperity, the achievement of energy goals, promotion of environmental sustainability, creation of jobs, and enhancement of quality and place of life in Humboldt County. The district additionally supports the Board of Supervisors' strategic framework of providing for and maintaining infrastructure, and by supporting businesses, workforce development, creation of private sector jobs. Here's some specific community-wide regional benefits anticipated to be generated by the district. You got $52.8 million in net fiscal impact to the county over 50 years. And that's on a present value basis. There's 198 new housing units within the district to be built, over 7,000 construction job years over the construction period, or 10 years, 805 direct permanent jobs in the county, nearly 1,000 additional indirect and induced permanent jobs, 989.1 million in economic output from construction alone, and 261.1 million in annual ongoing economic output directly into the county. Now, the big question is, what are the funds going to be used for? So as Scott mentioned, interviews with stakeholders done by CCRP were used to help determine some of the infrastructure to be funded. Some of those takeaways were infrastructure which encourages investment, such as advanced permitting and the placement of easements, water infrastructure upgrades, green energy opportunities, climate change mitigation strategies, green energy projects, and community and recreational infrastructure. Based on this feedback and requirements by EFID law and future bonding purposes, we came up with some categories of proposed facilities to be funded by the EFID. These categories encompass a variety of projects as to allow for flexibility moving forward, giving us a chance to hear and incorporate additional community feedback. So far, we have come up with 6 development types that we believe align with both EFID law and community feedback. So first, we have what we call energy infrastructure, which we believe to be district-wide, except for the near term. That's within 15 years from district formation. And our committee a minimum of 2.5 to 5 million for. These are projects which align with local and state goals for energy resilience, innovation, and independence. This would include projects which support green energy opportunities and expanded access to utilities. Next, we have climate infrastructure. This is believed to be located district-wide and possibly beyond, as there is potential for funding infrastructure outside the district if that infrastructure directly benefits the district. We believe this will likely be the case for climate infrastructure as well as business infrastructure. The time horizon for this is assumed to be both near-term and long-term being within 30 years. Climate change is a pressing issue that needs to be addressed now, but will also likely require long-term infrastructure to deal with lasting impacts. These are projects which align with climate change mitigation strategies, including sea level rise, tsunami mitigation, as well as earthquake and fire mitigation. An example of this would be emerging value-added forest product industries, which will encourage forest thinning, reducing risk of wildfires to communities, and promoting carbon sequestration. Next, we have community infrastructure. This is likely to be limited to the Samoa Peninsula townships, except for the long term with the minimum commitment of 10 to 25 million for projects which enhance quality of life for district residents and visitors. This would include things like affordable housing, libraries, childcare facilities, parks, facilities for nonprofit organizations, etc. We also have business infrastructure is also set to take place both within the district and potentially beyond. This will be for the near term, as it will promote more development and could speed up the accumulation of funds for the infrastructure projects. Minimum commitment of 2.5 to 5 million. These projects include those which enhance and aid in the development of existing growing industries on the Samoa Peninsula. This include acquisition, construction, repair of industrial structures for private use, brownfield restoration, other environmental mitigation, and also includes COVID relief for small businesses. Lastly is entitlement infrastructure focused throughout the district, and again in the near term. A minimum commitment of 2.5 to 5 million would be used for projects which support planning, building, zoning, and permitting activities for ongoing and new development projects. This could include things like pre-permitting, development plans, or development agreements. So there is a lot more that the IFP and the EFID can fund. Scott had said to me recently that, and I feel like this holds true for a lot of us, that when we think of economics and infrastructure, we often think of factories and cities and even smokestacks. But it's important to note that the EFID can fund a variety of projects, most of which are geared towards sustainable development. These both foster the health of the community and that of the environment. Here's a list of those projects which may be included, many of which are part of the previously outlined infrastructure table, and all of which are included in the draft IFP. We did receive some feedback from the Harbor District concerning the lack of port and harbor infrastructure in the IFP. And for this, I'd like to just briefly pass over to our partner, Joe Dieguez, to address. Joe has had experience working with an EFID, which included port and harbor infrastructure, and he's going to certainly have a lot more authority in regards to EFIDs in general. So with that, Joe, you want to take this one?
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. Joe Dieguez with Cosmont. So Tanner said we wanted to proactively explain why there's not this emphasis on port or harbor infrastructure, and on the contrary, why the IFP goes as far as to say, as you can see in the bottom paragraph on this page, goes as far as to say that the infrastructure would not be of primary or predominant use to or benefit to the port or harbor. The reason for including that specific language is to avoid triggering provisions in the EIFD law about the way this district would then have to be governed, the way it would have to be formed and then governed on an ongoing basis if there is mention of port and harbor infrastructure of primary benefit or predominant use for port or harbor activities. When we say that there are triggers, the 2 bullet points on this page are what we're talking about. So if we have this emphasis on port and harbor infrastructure, it is not this body, the Public Financing Authority, that then oversees the formation of this district and the ongoing governance. It would actually then be overseen by the Harbor District in place of this Public Financing Authority. And then in the future, if and when it makes sense to issue any debt, as opposed to being approved by this body and the Board of Supervisors alone, future debt issuances would have to be approved first by the Harbor District and then also State Lands Commission prior to debt issuance. So given the fact that the IFD it didn't seem from our perspective and from staff's perspective to be of primary benefit to the port or harbor, we've gone to the extent of being very clear that it is not of that primary use to avoid triggering these provisions. That's the high-level explanation. Happy to address any questions further at the end. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. That was very informative. Now I'm going to just briefly go over the financing section, which describes how all this is going to be funded. The amount made available by the county for the EFID is currently 75% of the county's tax increment. That means for every $1 of incremental property available, tax available, the EFID will receive approximately 12.75 cents. And for every $1 of incremental property tax in lieu of motor vehicle licensing fees available, the EFID will receive approximately 10.5 cents. This is with no other tax entities contributing at this time. So based on the proposed development described earlier, this gives the fund a total annual revenue of $1.8 million by year 10, a cumulative revenue of $30.1 million by year 20. And based on this information, by just year 5, the EFID could have a bonding capacity of $9.4 million, which it could issue and start paying for infrastructure at an earlier date. Like most of the information here, additional and detailed revenue estimations are available in the draft IFP. Lastly, we just like to point out that the EFID can also be leveraged to seek additional complementary funding. This includes grants, loans, private business investment, and more. We've listed a few of these opportunities out here, but for brevity's sake, I won't go into too much detail here. And again, just refer back to the IFP. And we'll note also that the complementary funding here is not limited to these sources. All right, and so next steps and timing. Today, we will answer questions, consider public comments. Again, no action will be taken, but if need be, the IFP will be revised accordingly. 3 additional PFA public hearings will be held to hear and incorporate additional feedback. The first, as of now, is set for December 14th at 10:30 a.m. The second expected to be held sometime in February of next year, and the final set for March of 2022. The Board of Supervisors will continue approving the IFP before, will consider approving the IFP before public hearing number 2. Once the IFP is adopted, we will finalize district formation, continue to pursue complementary funding sources, and promote development opportunity sites. Again, all the EFID documentation is available online or at our Go Humco website. With that, that concludes the presentation, and we'll entertain any questions or comments from the board.
All right. And Tanner, can you please stop sharing your screen so we can see who's got questions? Supervisor Wilson.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have just a couple of questions. One is it was mentioned that over in the Fairhaven area, not included necessarily in the calculation for growth necessarily, but does that mean it's still not? I mean, that's just because of lack of information. If there is, they are still part of this. They're within the construct of this EFID, correct?
Absolutely. We just didn't include anything because there's no current established development that's happening out there. There is a potential for, I believe, like 76 more residential units with the current sewage system. But we only included in the assessment development projects which are in the works. There's permits on them, or there's clear evidence that these developments are happening.
I was kind of more leaning on the Fairhaven Business Park, but I think it's kind of in the same sphere, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct. That is correct, Supervisor Wilson.
And then I just to drill down a little bit on the nexus or not with harbor related activities. So what you're saying is that if a project's directly related to harbor activities, that's really the harbor district will do that. But can we then, this EFID can partner with the harbor district, and where does that line get drawn or not? Or how do we do that?
Yeah, that is correct, Supervisor Wilson. And I would like to turn it over to Joe with Cosmont, who does have more specific experience there. Joe, do you mind giving some insight on that question?
No problem. The specific trigger is the use of even $1 of EIFD funding. So while there can be structural arrangements for partnership, the trigger would be even, believe it or not, even if $1 of EIFD tax increment funding capacity gets spent on infrastructure, that gets classified as of primary or predominant use for or benefit to the port or harbor activities. That is the trigger of these provisions. If there would be a partnership reached where the harbor is funding those specific things and the EIFD funding on its own is funding sort of complementary activities, that's totally okay. But the trigger is the use of EIFD dollars.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt again, but I do, I guess, kind of mean to interrupt, which is just that so what you're saying is that by complementary, they still can be leveraged off of one another in terms of funding, right, for matching and other things. They just have an authority provision, I guess, delineation. Is that what I'm, in terms of like?
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I would agree with that comment.
That clarifies my concern or question. Thank you.
You, any other members have a question or a comment? Rex?
I just noticed that COVID's mentioned quite a bit, COVID relief and COVID into the future and everything else. And I keep thinking we're trying to put this to an end, and I'm hearing 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you guys mentioned COVID about 4 times in your presentation and helping out everybody and recovery from COVID and everything else. And I mean, I don't know if we're doing great, but I mean, the United States is probably in the greatest financial recovery we've seen, or it sure looks like. California's still the 5th largest economy in the world, and we've doubled, our numbers are over the top. So a little slow coming to Humboldt maybe, but I just see a lot of, and I just don't want to dance on something that's popular when we're trying to put this thing to bed, and I think that's what people are so scared about, is everybody's throwing it out there like it's going to be here forever and we better plan on it. And I don't think that's why we're getting so just divisive amongst everybody. Let's wait 2 weeks for it to flatten out. Is way out of the barn now.
I would just mention that it is only mentioned once. It is a new revision to EFID law. and Joe can go in a little more detail about that. They just recently added that can be paid for, and it's just a small section of the business infrastructure. But we want to make sure that we include it in case it is needed. But it is only mentioned that one time in that one section, but it is noted.
All right, I read it more than once, but that may have just been written. Okay, thanks.
Hey, and Joe, would you like to provide any additional information since Tanner said you could?
I got an answer.
Okay, no, I'm just curious myself. Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. You raised my curiosity of how it's related here.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly here that what we saw in the EIFD laws with each legislative session, they kind of added some items that were topical at the time. And so economic recovery from COVID-19 was clearly topical in the last legislative session. So they threw it in there, and it was our advice, and I think staff was on the same page that if it's there, let's sort of put it on the menu if we need it. And if we don't need it, we don't use it. That was sort of the mentality at a high level.
Yeah, and through the chair, if I may, what type of infrastructure is funded still is guided by input from the community. So it's just an a la carte item that's been added because legislation added it to how EFIDs operate. But the purpose and intent of the IFP is to still be guided from community input, and with the help of your finance authority and public stakeholders to help define what infrastructure should be funded.
Okay, thank you. Let's see other hands up. We do have one hand up in the public. So if you are 9487, press *6 to unmute. You called on 9487 before. 9487, I think I said that. Okay, while we're waiting on 9487, we do have 0326. So I will go to 0326, and you have the same 3 minutes as we would normally offer in public comment. Press *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Charles Wilson. I suffered through Bonnie Neely's redevelopment project that she had a number of years ago. She was using the inflation of the 2006 housing market and everything like that. ORIC was going to get 1,000% increase in the assessed valuation, and she had things going out there. The property taxes were going to increase by 7.2% for 40 years and all that kind of stuff. So I get sort of cynical about these kind of projects sometimes. I think the assessed valuation estimates are probably grossly exaggerated to promote the project, but they probably will increase in the positive direction. But you got to remember Bonnie Neely's redevelopment fiasco there, and take that into consideration. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And we have, I think we already had Mr. Wilson, right? 0326 is Mr. Wilson. Okay. And 9487 does not have their hand up anymore. Nikki, are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing?
I am.
Hello. Wait. 9487 is unmuted now. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Yes.
9487.
Hello. Hi, my name is Robin Prasker with the City of Eureka. Thanks for offering this opportunity for folks to provide input today. We are here just sharing that countywide, all the cities have been working together on the Solid Waste Local Task Force for coordination of waste management. And SB 1383 is a big state mandate coming up, and a big part of it is organics processing to ideally have curbside composting opportunities for everybody in the county. And we just saw an opportunity here with this financing district to consider organics processing, whether that's considered energy infrastructure or climate infrastructure. It sounds pretty in line with what you all have been discussing. So we just wanted to share that opportunity for infrastructure that will be required per the state's mandate, SB 1383. So that's all we had to share. So thanks for considering that possible opportunity, and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you very much, Robin. All right. So we will go back to the board because 0326 already spoke. So, to the authority. So I'm curious, Robin mentioned the organics processing, and that sounds like it's a fit, but I wanted to ask somebody from the team here where that fits in. Oh, and I do see Tim Callison's on. We'll get to you in just a moment, Tim. So Scott?
Yes, through the chair. That type of a project or activity is the type of project or activity that could be supported by the EIFD. That's absolutely correct. I think that sometimes when we hear the word infrastructure, we think of concrete and smokestacks, but the EIFD can really be set up to fund a variety of community infrastructure, including trails or parks or educational facilities, community spaces, as well as providing supportive infrastructure like transmission lines, sewer improvements for businesses out on the peninsula.
All right, thank you. I just wanted that confirmation.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And Member Callison, press. There you go.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Awesome. I do apologize to the board. I did have to load the app, but when I coming back on, I was coming up as Tanner. So I apologize on all levels. I am here. So anyway, just my 2 cents.
All right, thanks. I'm glad to know you were actually here under an assumed name. Okay. All right, any other questions or directions? Since there's no, okay, yes, Supervisor Wilson.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm really encouraged by hearing from the City of Eureka staff and just jumping in and seeing opportunities. And I'm hoping that our other jurisdictions will see similar opportunities and even work together towards that end. And so, yeah, that's a bright, shining start to this endeavor. I'm just really happy about that. So with that, whenever you're ready to close this session, I'm happy to move on to the next part of our day.
All right, so then I would ask, I know we don't have our attorney here. It doesn't have to, oh yes, we do. I don't know, I don't even know if we need to receive and file this report, or we can just say, thank you for the staff report. I mean, without objection, I'm saying, I don't see anybody raising their hands. Oh, the attorney's on though. Is that okay?
Chair, you've already received the report. I don't think action is necessary.
Okay, thank you. I just, every once in a while, I get a little worried. All right, well, thank you all for being with us today. And thank you, Chris. You missed the first one, so nice to see you. All right, so we will then close. We will adjourn as the EFID Public Financing Authority, and we will reconvene as the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. And we will be moving to closed session. We will take a 15-minute break. Staff has requested that. And at this time, County Counsel Billingsley, can you brief us on closed session?
Thank you, Chair. It's the intention of the board to meet in closed session on 3 items. The first 2 are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. The first is North Coast Environmental Center versus County of Humboldt, case number CV 2100518. The second is Lehman versus County of Humboldt, case number 2020 Appeal A162986. And the third closed session is a conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code 54957.6 to meet in closed session and review the county's position and instruct its designated negotiators, Kelly Barnes, Alicia Hayes, and Jack Hughes, for the various labor groups and other employees listed in the agenda.
All right, thank you. So we will go to public comment. Anyone interested in making comment on closed session? I'm not seeing any hands up. so we will adjourn to closed session. And if you had to guess, Jefferson, maybe we shouldn't guess on when we're going to report out. Seems like. Do you have an estimated time?
I could give a range between 45 minutes and an hour and a half.
Okay. We'll report out when we get back. So, Supervisor Wilson, did you have your hand up? I thought you moved your hand. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll take a 15-minute break and like 11:35. Alicia, is that what you'd like? Okay, so we'll go to closed session at 11:35. All right. All right, we got 3. County Council Billingsley, do we have a closed session?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On items M1, M2, and M3, there's no reportable action.
Great. Thank you. See y'all later.